There's no way. But it's just it's crazy how complicated and complex everything winds up being when you mash it all together in the stew.
Yeah.
So,
for instance, I didn't even say interest rates. Most people are going to think it's 99% interest rates.
They're 7% right now.
And I'm busier right now. I can barely breathe. It's been just months of just cranking out business. So who knows what it is?
When's the last time we had an interest rate that was actually this high at like a 7% or something like that? It's kind of been a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long time.
Yeah, good. Wow. So I'm not sure. It was in that range when I bought my first place back in the 90s. So I should know this, but I couldn't tell you.
That makes a lot of sense because I remember my parents talking when I was a kid. We moved here in 1985. And I remember my parents saying that I think their first interest rate was like 7.5%, somewhere in that neighborhood. And knowing them as I did, they probably had pretty good credit. So yeah, that's probably how long it's been since we've been there.
It's funny hearing the stories back like about 79 or so. Interest rates would be like 18, 19%. And supposedly realtors would say, because there was also oil embargoes and various things, realtors would say, yes, I'll show you houses. You have to bring 5 gallons of gas with you.
You got to gas my car up, man. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So we've never hit that sort of thing yet since I've been doing it. But.
Is it, and I know this is maybe, kind of getting out of your world a little bit into the financial world, but is there ever a time you can think of where would you tell someone right now to do an ARM?
It depends on the scenario because if you know
it's going down.
Well, if you know that you're going to sell the house in a few years, shy of when that ARM is going to adjust, you see, and it makes sense, then and so it always depends on the scenario,
kind of situation,
even on the financial savvy of the person. So you try to rely on good mortgage folks to give them good advice there. And then I can help them check that or help them get with their financial planner or accountant because everybody's scenario is different. And so there are times some things work for one person that goes against the conventional wisdom.
Yeah. Like I can tell you, like when we bought our house here, the difference between a 30-year and a 15-year was so negligible. I didn't even consider it worth it.
Wow.
It was like, at the time, it was like, I don't know, the 30 was, 3% and the 15 was like 2.9, 2.8, some ridiculous small little gap.
So in that case, you go with the 30. And if you want to pay it like a 15,
go ahead.
People don't know. You take a 30-year mortgage, instead of, let's say your payment was $2,000 a month. Instead of paying $2,000 a month, you pay $1,000 every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. You'll get in an extra payment a year.
Yeah, biweekly.
And if you tell them to apply all that to principal, then you will pay off that loan in 23 years instead of 30.
Yeah.
Just by paying half the amount every 2 weeks instead of that amount once a month. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, because you're not allowing the interest to compound for the 30 days. You're only allowing it to compound for 15.
Yeah, and you cut off 14. 7 years of your mortgage in doing that.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is, when people have no idea probably nowadays what an amortization schedule is either, and how to make a true double payment on your house because people are like, I can't pay double my mortgage. And it's like, you don't have to pay double your mortgage. You literally just need to pay the next month's principal and you're making double payments on your house. And at the beginning of your loan, that extra payment is not that much because you're pretty much the vast majority of what you're paying. A lot of times you're paying all the interest up front.
Yes.
Instead of on the back end. So what you're putting towards principal is going to be lower in the front versus the back. So you combine those two things together and you'll pay your house off in 10 years. I forget what the math is. It's not quite 10, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. If you kind of combine a bi-weekly and you do an extra, payment, you do a double payment like that and you use the schedule. It's pretty, I always like to say $1's not $1 if you know what you're doing with it.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
Well said.
You can manipulate it. It's amazing how much you can manipulate money to work for you or against you.
It's doing one of those two things.
It's doing all the time.
Day, every day.
That's right. So if you had to give one piece of advice to a new business owner or realtor, either one, just starting off, what would be a couple of things that you would tell them do right now? You had kind of mentioned one earlier, but what would be some others?
Yeah. Another thing would be scheduling. It sounds overly simplistic, but most people early on will take every appointment that they can get and book them in all kinds of places and times, whereas your time, people undervalue their time is my point.
Yeah.
And they'll run around chasing things from a scheduling standpoint that never were going to pay off, thinking that you're working hard.
Yeah.
Well, you're not working smart. So qualifying the situation to find out if you're the right solution for them before you go traipsing out to meet with them, and then trying to schedule that such that you're getting a lot of the out of the office stuff done at one time and having a lot of time for the in-office stuff. Because if you just are out there on the road eating fast food all day, every day, and killing time in between appointments and taking appointments that you never should have taken, you're busy, but you're not profitable.
Yeah.
So focusing on being productive, not just busy.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I mean, I know that's overly simplistic, but I think that's where a lot of people miss the boat. They're trying to take everything or save $1 by doing work themselves that's low. Like you could pay somebody $15 an hour to do something while you waste your valuable time where you can make tons of money doing what you do.
Yeah.
So how you schedule and value your time is where, you're never going to go to the next level of what you're doing if you keep operating like you used to and like how you got here. So you have to figure out what's the value of your time and schedule yourself accordingly.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's great advice. Any last tips?
Last tips is tell people the truth up front.
Yeah.
Show up on time. Deliver what you promise. Don't overpromise, and you'll be a superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, literally in today's world, that's, so do that every single time. If you're running late, call them. If you mess up, take responsibility, apologize, do what you can to make it right.
Yeah. You're talking communication and accountability. My heart is warming by the second.
Hire you to teach people these things.
It's amazing how often that's what bites us. It's incredible. Like the things you just said right there, the vast majority of what you just said really falls into one of those two categories. It's always that way. It's in every facet of life. It doesn't matter whether it's work. It doesn't matter if it's recreational, your family life, whatever. It's typically those two things that get us.
Yeah,
and I'm guilty too. I still fall into the traps.
Yeah,
we're human.
Yeah, exactly. We're human. We're tempted to think we're going to accomplish more than we can.
Yep.
Like early in my career, I'm vying for a listing, and these people are interviewing other realtors, and you want to promise the moon because you think that's going to cause you to win the deal.
Yeah,
and it's so easy to believe you're going to accomplish all those things, but then not. And so you have to just really discipline yourself. Like if I say X, Y, and Z, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then throw in A, B, and C on top of that. You're never going to say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and only do X and Y. You just have to be so committed to the fact that I've got to deliver every last thing I promise. And if you can always do that, with personal and business life, you'll stop promising so much and people will trust you and you'll be able to sleep at night and you'll be fine.
Yeah, you're going to do well. If your integrity is good, people know that. And people gravitate to people who have high integrity. If they trust them, trust goes so far, right? It's amazing how much that is undervalued these days, unfortunately. Because you see, like the situations you were talking about earlier, how quick we're willing to compromise our integrity, which is the trust aspect, to just make an extra buck or increase our position in some way or whatever.
I read a book one time on integrity, and they said, think of it like the wake of a boat. The boat comes through, okay? Then in its wake, the water is still moving and everything. After it's gone through, after the transaction, after the relationship, after the sale, or after whatever, how do you leave those people? What is the impression that they're left with? That wake is a big part of your integrity. If you'll think about that, it'll keep you on the right track.
It's very true, man. Very true. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Yeah. 317-216-TONY.
Okay.
216-8669 is the phone number. You can go to realintegrity.com, which is one of my websites. You can, on YouTube, go to @realintegrity. Those are probably the first, easiest ways to get in touch with us.
Fantastic, man. Thanks for coming in and talking with me.
Hey, I enjoyed it.
Thanks for being my first in-studio guest, man.
Oh, I'm excited. My pleasure.
This has been fantastic. So
Enjoyed it.
thank you very much. And we'll talk later.
Sounds good.
All right.